Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. I am currently in Canada, of course, and my esteemed guest, I believe, is in Australia.
Yes.
Welcome to Six Elemental Interviews. I have an absolutely phenomenal guest tonight, as you can see. Someone who is so well known in the indie space in terms of not only as a brilliant and accomplished author, but also as a fantastic blogger, podcaster, interviewer. She does so much, and I'm going to shut up and let her talk about that. However, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I have the incredible Livia J. Elliot. Livia, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Well, thank you, Bill, for inviting me. Like, I have watched your videos for a long while, so it's truly an honor to be here. And yeah, as you mentioned, I do a bit of everything. So I started writing interactive fiction on the app that I released with my partner, which is called Unearthed Stories. I have a podcast called Books Undone, in which I do basically essays as a solo episodes. I also do group discussions and I do author interviews. It's all long form, however, so over around an hour each episode. And yeah, I have two series going on right now in book formats. Records of the Orders, which is a literary philosophical fantasy, quite grimdark to some extent. And the one that we are discussing today, which is Tales of the Bookshelves, it's a bit more literary fairy tale fantasy, and it's actually the novelization of one of my interactive stories. So, yeah, super happy to be here.
Well, fantastic. And we are definitely going to dive into Dance with Me, an absolutely exceptional story that I had the privilege
You.
of having an arc. It was incredible. I absolutely loved it. So many aspects that were phenomenal. The prose, absolutely stellar. We were talking about that a bit backstage. That people who know me know that if your prose is enchanting, which yours was, I'm
Thank
hooked.
you.
So that was incredible. And we'll talk about density. We'll talk about what you're doing to promote, etc. But I do want to delve into everything you do in this space and your other works and the genesis, the origins of Dance with Me, as you noted from one of the stories. But I'm just going to quickly put up. We have a fabulous friend of the show, supporter of the community,
Chibipo.
Chibipo. How you doing? Thanks so much, my friend, for coming out. Chibipo is amazing. As someone who
Yeah,
makes all of us better and supports us
definitely.
in a way that makes us want to be better. So I'm going to have the privilege in a special community support appreciation episode of sitting down with Chibipo on Six Elementals interviews too. So I can't wait for that. So Chibipo, thanks so much for coming out and supporting Livia. So now, so Livia, so just kind of in order to trace how Dance with Me evolved, one of the things you mentioned in the course of the last little bit was all about Unearthed Stories, interactive
Yeah.
fiction. Can you speak about Unearthed Stories and how did this Dance become novelized from Unearthed Stories?
Yeah, I have it right here. So this is the app that I did with my partner, and it actually has. I will say that it's a bit of a love story. So I have been writing my whole life, and on 2020 I had decided to try traditional publishing. It didn't work well. I wrote a long story that I have been working for like 16 years already. I wrote short stories and. Yeah, I didn't receive comments that were about the books, but comments that were more about myself from the Asians. And so I just sipped everything and decided not to write. And my partner, he's just like my knight in shining armor, you know? He's also a video game developer. And so one day he came and told me, like, let's make a video game together. Let's publish interactive fiction. You can write whatever you want. And yeah, he literally just made a video game for me to just write the stories. And he's also a fan of reading. He reads a lot, and I think his favorite series is probably The Name of the Wind, the Kingkiller Chronicles. And he told me, like, I also read a lot of speculative fiction mostly. I read a bit of nonfiction as well, but not as much. And so we decided to do it only fantasy and sci fi for adult readers as well. And with literary elements, but something that we decided or put a lot of effort on thinking was how we could use the medium as a way to enhance the storytelling. So what I mean by that is when you are writing a book, like the general advice that you get is show, don't tell, right? But if you have the mechanic of choosing or of giving the reader some agency or the illusion of agency, how can you use the choices to actually show part of the story instead of telling it? So, for example, when I was writing Dance with Me, so this is how the app will look like, right? So, you will have paragraphs and then you will have choices. And within the choices, you will have to just swipe one, and that's where the story goes, right? Sometimes they are a bit of dialogue, sometimes they can be thoughts on the character, sometimes it is just, I will go upstairs or downstairs, it varies on the story. But I started playing with the different things that I could do. And I had one short story that I had written based on an idea of how I felt at that time. And that was actually Dance with Me. The scene that I had written, or the short story, was mostly around the ending of what later became the interactive version. And so when I went to start working with Unearthed, I said, like, okay, I already have that story. It's super important to me. And let's take it from there and try to make it interactive. But when I did it interactive, I also wanted to show how the ballerina will reach that final point of being fractured. So the story began actually when she was born, which is basically the first paragraph on what became the novella. And the original short story was a regular short story. When I went to Unearthed Stories, I said, nah, I'm just going to try to do something more. It's a game. I have quote unquote permission to do more. And so I came up with, I'm not sure if you can see it, with a strike through text, right? And the idea of the strike through text was also part of the allegory in this case, which was when you are depressed or when you are in a traumatic environment or an emotionally abusive environment, sometimes either you feel things but you don't really dare feeling them, you feel them but don't acknowledge them, or you witness something like a toxic behavior, you know what it is, but it is far easier to replace it with, for example, blaming yourself, right? Because if you blame yourself, then you are guilty, you can fix it, which is not always the case, but those are the mental gymnastics those environments lead us to use. And so I came through with the idea of the strike through text. And so there are cases in which the protagonist will say that, the the elven boy, has some reactions and she will see him grimacing, but then strike through and says he's smiling or he's worried. And how that translated to the mechanics is that sometimes in some of the choices, when you swap them, they vanish and the character just does something else, or she will just strike the whole choice and do something else. And I remember when I was developing the interactive story, my partner read it. He's my developmental editor, and he told me, like, it's pretty frustrating. And I was just like, that's a point. That's the whole point, because I wanted, to frustrate the reader player on the app to actually feel how frustrating it is to not be able to acknowledge your own thoughts when you are depressed or when you are through those emotions, and how that actually translated to the book was something pretty difficult to do, because I had created all that system and all that frustration around the mechanic of swiping and choosing, and then realizing that you can actually choose because the person is choosing for you, right? So I had to translate that into the book. And so it also ended up with cases, not sure if you can see it, but there are also a lot of strike through text in the book, which I know it's not the most common thing that you are going to find, but then again, this is a bit of literary fiction. So, and I think in every story that I have tried in Unearthed Stories, I have tried to learn something different. For example, I have one story in particular that remembers that you finish it. So once you are done, if you replay it, it will remember and it will show you additional information because it is a whole metaphor around emotional language and how once you understand and you have the language to explain your emotions, then you can see everything that happened and you have more information. So when you replay it, basically now that you understand how everything happened, then you get more information throughout. There is another one in which this one, which is Means of Egress, that's actually a dungeon crawler, not similar to dungeon crawler core at all. It's more a metaphor of the journey of life and how you can be trying to find your purpose your whole life only to realize that at least you have to try to find it. It doesn't mean that you will find it, and it doesn't mean that the purpose that you find in your 20s is going to be the same purpose on your 40s or in your 60s, you know. And that one actually has two POV. So you have a third person POV that is very intent on narrating the player that you are actually playing. And so it comes to the point where you are actually playing against your biases. Are you making the choices because with the information the character that you control knows, or are you making the choices because you as a person actually read both narrators, the one in third person and the one? So those are the things I generally experiment with in the app, and they are all pretty different. I could talk like hours on end without them about everything that I have tried there.
That is absolutely incredible. This is such a unique method of expression, such a unique method to convey something that I think for many of us, we think about certain traditional formats by which to create a literary device. What made you choose, Livia, to go that route and to the thematic aspects we're talking about, which seem very personal? And correct me if I'm wrong
Yeah.
if they aren't personal, but they seem very like lived experience. What made you choose to go that route and to express yourself in that manner?
Yeah, I think like I have been writing my whole life. Like the first story that I remember writing was when I was 7 years old, which mind you was awful because I was 7 years old. But after that, I always wrote for a purpose, you know, because I had an idea or because I needed to complain about something or I just needed to make sense of something. And many times as a reader, the books that I have loved the most are books that have, to some extent, resonated with me, either because they helped me understand something, or they gave me a new idea, or they showed me something that I hadn't considered before. And so that's exactly what I want to write. It's like, for example, in one of my books, I really wanted to try to see how a being that is not even, that are just thoughts embodied, for example, how will they behave? I can do that in books, right? I can do that through fantasy. I can do that through allegories. And that's how everything started. But I think that in particular with Dance With Me and Reflections and Our Own Rhythm, which are the three that I have written that are the most personal, those were also, I think, an attempt to put my feelings out there through an allegory in hopes it will also help other people. You know, it's like, yeah, I've been through shit sometimes, but perhaps it wasn't all for nothing. Perhaps I can put it up in a book and it will reach somebody and it will help them. And I did have a lot of comments from the interactive version and from my beta and ARC readers saying that the book arrived just in the right moment. And that's just heartwarming. You know, that's a reason for what I write as well.
Yeah, and that must be so rewarding and eminently satisfying
Yeah.
that that's the feedback with that. I want to quickly put up just another awesome person in the chat, Britton.
Britton, he's there.
So okay, dude, awesome booktuber. Check out Britton's channel. On top of everything else, a great fella, and on top of everything else, he's an Oklahoma football seniors fan.
Yeah.
So he rises high in my esteem for that alone. Besides being a great person, so thank you
He
so much,
has
Britton,
some
for coming out.
amazing and thoughtful videos as well. So yeah.
Yes, he really does. So check out Britton's channel. Great content there. Thanks for coming by to support Livia, Britton. We appreciate it. Um, so Dance with Me is not your first novel. Is not
No.
Can you tell us a bit about not only your other works in terms of interactive fiction, but also your novelized work as well?
Yeah, so I have, I think, at least three full books that are unpublished still. So those are the ones that I started on 2020, and yeah, we'll see what I do with them in the future. And after that, I have a lot in Unearthed. I think in Unearthed I have currently 13 out of my own, and the last one is Our Own Rhythm, which is actually another highly allegorical that is on the same universe as Dance with Me. So it's another doll, it's a standalone, but yeah. And the other series that I currently have is Records of the Orders, which is this one. And funny enough, it actually started on the app as well. So the first entry for that one was Mean, which is a grimdark political. And I actually wrote it to complain because it's a mighty complaint about a former career path. You can find out in the author notes, even the structure of the story means something in that allegory. And I really like that universe. Like I went, through the rabbit hole of world building, let's just say. And it's a bit more philosophical in the sense that it will explore ideas that are sometimes less attached. It focuses on control, on bias, and on the effects of a struggle on our identity, how our identity and attitude can be defined by the struggles that we overcome, right? And so I decided to just do a whole series on that one because I had too much work building, too many ideas, and the whole plot in my head. And that's how last year I released this one, The Genesis of Change. And basically, the way I could describe it is you are following alchemists, but the alchemists, it's not the traditional alchemy you will find there. It's based on philosophy. So the elements I manipulate are alive elements, which are thoughts, emotions, attitudes, feelings. You have half alive elements, roughly about air, thunder, that type of thing, and non alive elements, which are just chemical compounds. And this story follows two characters, each of them messing up with a human, one trying to train the human, the other trying to find the ideas the human has, because within those ideas lies the genesis of change for the orders. And yeah, it's a nice book, but it's a type of book that you will need to just sit down and think through because revelations are more around the ideas and what that means for not only the alchemists, but also for humanity. I'm actually writing book one of that one, so the main book, which is going to be, it's a bit more political than that one, going back to the origins of mean, which is also political. Political in the sense that I like to explore political philosophy. So what's power? What's authority? How does perception affects authority? So it's not really ideological because I don't like messing up with that. Right. Yeah, after that, when the anniversary of Unearthed Stories was coming in, I told my partner, like, oh, it's been 2 years already. One, where did time go? Two, we should do something to celebrate. And he told me, like, straight through, like, you have to novelize Dance with Me. That's his favorite book. He knows exactly why I wrote it. And yeah, that's how it came through. So I decided to do it. It's this one. It's going to be a series of standalones, and they are being truthful to the origins. They all start as interactive. So that's how I ended up writing this one, Our Own Rhythm. And yeah, it doesn't follow the same characters. It's a different standalone. And the themes are also based. Let me show you the cover. It's beautiful. And
That is
This
beautiful.
one was made by in yeah, so Dance has artwork made in graphite by a Mexican artist, Jose Arturo Bustamante, and this one is ink, and the artist he's Russian, A. Chernyshov. And yeah, so this one is more about bullying and how that can make you actually hate what you loved,
Mhm.
and how that can fundamentally change you. By the time I wrote that one, I needed to cope with the idea that sometimes what gave you joy before becomes too associated with negative things, and then you can't really keep doing that, you know.
Yeah.
And that it's a bit longer. It's, I think, around 70K words. Dance with Me is a novella, so it's pretty tiny, even though it's a bit heavy to read. And yeah, you can see that I write a lot about what I feel or things like that. But it's always shrouded in allegories, I will say, because I find that allegories are far better to express an idea. They are, if well done, which I will leave my readers to decide if I did it well. I think that a well done allegory can be highly relatable because every reader will add meaning to it, you know. And so with Dance with Me, I have had people telling me that they read the relationship between the main character and the elf boy as a filial relationship, as a boss employee relationship,
Yeah.
as a partner
Yeah.
relationships, and it fits, you know. It doesn't really matter how I wrote it, like the whole allegory will carry on by itself.
You know what? That's and that so much of what you said is fabulous. That's an exceptional point for me personally, as the reader of Dance with Me. That I think that was transportable in terms of the nature of
Yeah.
relationships. That wasn't necessarily. I mean, obviously, some people would see it as a romantic partner relationship, and
Yeah.
you mentioned, and some people might say it as an employer-employee relationship. It seemed very portable, and I thought, and of course, again, it was so well done that
Thank you.
there were moments that brought me to tears. There's some moments that made me laugh. Um, is a book like that is in many ways, and not necessarily because of social commentary, but because of the personal aspect. Is it difficult to write as much as it's therapeutic and as much as you feel so gratified because of potentially a reader's reading it and then it healing them? But is it also difficult to write?
Not really, I will say. Like, in particular, let me tell you something. You know that you have the falling scene in the cover, which is actually in the middle of the book. That's actually the scene that kickstarted the allegory. So I imagined, I wanted to I wasn't really being able to make sense of what I felt. And the allegory I came up with was that I was feeling like a teacup, a ceramic teacup that had been thrown or let fall to the ground, stepped on, and then glued back together. Right. And when I came back home the next day after work, I had changed that because I didn't really like the allegory of a cup, but I changed it to a ballerina from a top of music box, the ones that you have as a figurine there, that will be constrained to that as well, because I wanted to express the idea of feeling trapped, right? And so when I wrote that scene, I was literally grimacing. I was literally grimacing and a bit teary. And I remember that my partner came in and he was just like, "What happened?" He got very scared. I was, "I'm writing." It wasn't really, and it's a scene that, at least to me, because I know, all the grisly details that aren't in the book, I know exactly where it comes from. It's a scene that I keep getting teared up when I read it. And I had the audiobook done, so on the Kickstarter, you can get the audiobook for this one because it's already recorded. And when the narrator sent me that scene, I think I just had to pause. Like, I wasn't able to listen to the whole episode, to the whole chapter. I just had to read that scene, went through for a bit, and then came back because I honestly couldn't keep listening. She's amazing. It's not because of her. She's an amazing narrator. You can see the reels that I have put up. Their voices are spectacular. But it was everything far more real, not only because it was written because I could hear it. I think it made the whole experience even more difficult. And on this one, actually, when I was writing it, my cat passed away, and I
So
was
sorry.
actually stuck. Yeah, thank you. I was actually pretty stuck. I didn't know how to complete the story, and I said, I realized how much my cat had helped, and so I made him into a character. That's why he's on the cover. And when I was writing the chapter in which that character is introduced. I was like with a tissue box. I couldn't just keep writing. And because a lot of what happened in that scene when the cat is introduced, it's also, you know, memories that I had about my cat, but it was in some way my way of coping and grieving with him. I don't think it's easy. Thank you, Riton. Yeah, I loved him a lot, and I had him for 13 years, so it wasn't. Yeah, he was part of me. And even when I wrote dance, it's always difficult because I'm always, it's not only, yeah, there is a layer of allegory, but I'm also wondering, like, what if somebody knows, because the allegory, it's also a layer of protection, you could say, to some extent, that you can't pinpoint exact events because it's an elf, it's a ballerina doll and so on, but I know exactly where it comes from, and that's what makes it difficult to write as well. But I will say that even with all of that is so difficult, the messages that I have received from people saying that the book actually gave them hope because it has to some extent a positive ending, that just made it worth it.
Yes, and I think that, and again, the book is so emotive. Part of, and again, we want to hear from you. Part of the thematic work and part of the impetus for the work, besides surviving emotional trauma and one's sense of self, one's sense of self worth. Part of it is a very positive, and as you said, in terms of finding a partner that does value you, finding a partner that you can trust. And
Yeah.
one thing that I absolutely loved about when I first started speaking to you about Dance with Me, and I think that we definitely connected on, is that, for example, in my life, my wife is my best friend, my partner, my business partner. We've built, anything that I've built in terms of my writing is directly attributable to her. She does so many things behind the scenes that people don't realize. She permits me to write. She supports me in every way. So I get to collaborate and work with her on a very close level that I'm so grateful for. And I can see that with your partner as well. Like everything that you
Yeah.
described, you have that relationship as well, and clearly it's been fabulous for you. So, can you talk about that element of
Yeah.
life imitating art with your partner being such an integral part of your work?
Yeah, I think he's an integral part of my life as a whole. But um, when I left or stopped writing in 2022, I was about to delete everything, like that kind of moment of rage. And he was just like, no, don't. And he convinced me to zip everything. And then, as I said, like, I came back to writing simply because he offered me to make Unearthed Stories and to make that platform, which currently it grew up to a point in which we are inviting writers, to and acquiring a story. So that's amazing. And when I started writing in Unearthed in particular, I was super concerned because a normal editor, somebody who edits for books, wouldn't know how to handle mechanics and everything. So game mechanics and how, especially what is called the ludonarrative dichotomy, which is basically how the narration and the mechanics that you are having in a game can lead to a conflict if they are not aligned, right? So suppose that you have a very sad scene, but your mechanics make it feel boring, right? That's breaking the whole point. So I needed somebody who will edit that. And he actually knows a lot about that. So he became my editor, my developmental editor, and he started like not only reading, but we also started fine tuning the mechanics of the games at the start. that's also how I did a lot of weird stuff because I was bouncing off ideas of him and getting that. And from then on, he just continued working with me. He's always like, I have dedicated two of my books, so Dance with Me and Genesis, both are for him. And he worked as an editor for both of them. And yeah, you can see that actually the dedication in dance is quite personal. So if you manage to read the book, you will understand what it means. And yeah, for records of the orders, he actually went through a lot of, he knows a lot of the world building as well, because I bounced out a lot of my ideas with him. But for example, with the other one that we have, so let me backtrack. In the Kickstarter, yes, you can get Dance with Me, you can get the audiobook, but Our Own Rhythm is also a reward that you can get. And the allegory on this one, I don't want to say it because it will spoil a key part of a book, but let me just say it's about transformation, and it's one of the most difficult character progressions that I have done because of what I wanted to put up. And he was in there with me, trying to like, this is not working. Why isn't working? Let's think, And we just sat there thinking. And it was pretty funny to some extent because we will go for a date and we were just like, how do we fix a book? And the book was a lot matter at that point. But yeah. And yeah, he's been there like the whole time. I don't think I would have done it without him.
And that in itself is so gratifying. And I think
Yeah.
part of, I'm guessing for you, part of what makes this whole entrepreneurial journey so special for me, and I think it's for you, is that I can do it with my partner, and I think it takes your relationship to another level
Yeah.
when you can work together on something of that magnitude, and that's something that's such a special part of you that you know. I know you've talked about it in some of your interviews and podcasts and all the people in the community you've dealt with. I know I've talked about it in that, you start this writing thing and you think that so much of it is done in isolation, on your own,
Yeah.
but then you realize how many people can potentially be involved in actually making it a success. And, in our cases, it's our partner being directly involved. And in some
Yeah.
cases, it's partners simply being generally supportive and perhaps giving you time to write and taking care of pets and children and chores, but whatever the involvement, it's all great, and it's all positive, it's all a benefit
Yeah.
to us. But then you have in some cases, and every relationship is different, and the level of ability to participate and commit is also different. But obviously your partner has some unique skills as well that have been a benefit
Yeah.
to the whole endeavor. So I just think that's just fabulous. And I just love
Yeah,
seeing it.
it's amazing. And also because I did work with others, developmental editors when I was quitting in 2020, but they were always just, they were more geared towards traditional and was just like, you can't do that. You shouldn't do this. And I can and I will because I don't write to market. And he takes a different approach, He knows what I want to do, where I'm going, and he helps me get there. It's not like he's trying to impose a trend, And I think that's also something amazing about the indie community, which we were talking on the backstage, that you can do things that are far more unique and personal that sometimes may not be quite to market. And yeah, you can still publish them.
Yeah, and you're not constrained or confined by
Yeah.
anything. We talked about that, as you mentioned backstage. That I'm finding now in this juncture of my career, and it seems as you're finding the same. In that we indies, we're setting the trends, and meanwhile, traditional
Yeah.
publishing seems to be chasing the trends or trying to market to a particular trend. But in the meanwhile, we're writing the stories that we believe need to be heard, and
Yeah,
we're
definitely.
whether there's no shame, we don't blink. We simply write them and put them out there and let the reader decide if they're worthy of being read, and to what degree. And so I think that, and again, I need to commend you, Olivia, for
Oh, thank you.
the courage that it takes to write a story that is so deeply personal, and that is definitely part of your soul and part of your evolution and part of your history. And that takes immense courage. So I really have to applaud you for that. Obviously, it is a skill to be able to put it into the form of a short story or a book that people love to read, and to have the wonderful prose and how you've your artistic talents. However, aside from that, really need to commend you for being willing to, because definitely for, I believe, almost all authors, a book is part of them. It's personal to a certain degree, but the story may be totally fictional, made up. It's not something that is part of themselves or part of their lived experience. But for you, it is. So definitely need to commend you for the courage for sharing that with us all, and so thank you for that.
Thank you for that. You're very kind. I think that I will say, and I'm sorry for putting it this way, I was scared shitless because it's it's too personal, And then I said, it's that person I'm going to get this whole spotlight of a Kickstarter and put it in there, which is even worse. But yeah, I really wanted it to reach the people that matter, the people that needed that story. And I think that actually gave me the courage to put it out there, because I know that I have read books written by other people who also wrote from their experience or from their ideas, and those helped me. And so, it's like you pay it forward. That's the idea.
And you certainly are. I just want to quickly put up the comment here by Britton that he did mention, and because you're referring to Book New Sun, I said, did you see the Mintons? Yeah, who are fabulous authors in their own right. For
I
those of
know.
you, Discovery, J.J. Minton. So, Father, Mother, and Son. That is an amazing book, and I'll be talking to them as well later in the month on Six Book New Sun. They quite liked it. So,
I haven't seen the episode with them yet. I hoping to see that video soon. But what I can say is that I interviewed them in my podcast, and the episode will be coming late May. And it
I
was an
can't wait.
amazing conversation. Yeah, around Discovery actually. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, I can't wait to watch that. Yes, I'll be having him on later in the month. So, Britton brought up Gene Wolfe. So, and I want to look back to Dance with Me.
Yeah.
I want to look back there, but I do want to speak about your writing journey or evolution in terms of things such as, how did writing get started for you? Who were some of your influences? You have a very interesting, like, for example, right now I believe you're based in Australia. However, you're Argentinian by birth, so you're an expat of Argentina living in Australia. Probably very different literary scenes. How did writing all start for you, and how has that transitioned now that you've relocated, and how's all that?
Yeah. So when I was I learned to read very little, like very, very little. And I will just pick books that my parents had, and that's it. And I remember at that time, I'm not sure if it was the first play or the replay, but they were watching Dune, the series, the old series, and I can't recall really if it was the original or the second time. I just saw the blue eyes. I liked it. I was like 10 years old, probably. I was very young. And so I found the book. It was a translation. I found Dune on the library at home. And yeah, that's the first sci fantasy that I actually read. I didn't read The Lord of the Ring until I was like 20 something. And that was the first. And then I read a lot of sci-fi. Like what I will pick always will be sci-fi because I like the ideas. It made me, and it was what I had at hand, basically. A problem of being in Argentina back at that time is that few books made it in the translation, right? So there wasn't much to get. For example, I remember that when I wanted to get the name of a wind in a Spanish for my partner, it was an odyssey to actually get a translation in there. And yeah, given some situations, it wasn't that easy to purchase online. So there was some restrictions. I read a lot of classic sci-fi as well when I started. And when I started writing, also very young, of course, I went to write straight sci-fi. And my teachers were the type of teacher that would hate genre fiction. So it didn't bode very well. They liked more normal general trade fiction or women's fiction, not something that I was into because there wasn't much. Something that I recall loving when I was very young was weird mysteries. In particular, I would read a lot of supernatural mysteries. I thought they had like that fantastical element. But then after 2 years of reading that straight, I just got bored and moved to historical fiction. And I read a lot of historical fiction. I love history as a whole. Like that's another rabbit hole that you will have me talking for like 4 hours straight. And yeah, um, by that time, I think I was already reaching uni. And that meant that very few little time to read anything that wasn't about university, right? And yeah, shortly after that, I relocated. And something that I can tell you, which is interesting, is that my reading style has changed a lot. And of course, like, for example, in a school, I remember that when I was a teen, they will give us Jorge Luis Borges to read. Like, of course, I didn't get it. Of course, I didn't get it. Like most of my classmates didn't get it. And now I love it. That I have a bunch of episodes in my podcast just about Borges because I love reading him and I always will read him in Spanish and then in the translation. But then again, it's not a type of book that you will give a teenager, you know?
And I quickly want to put up, yeah. So Britton said quickly that because he saw Book of the Sun in the background on your shelf, that it made him think of it. And he also commented that, oh, speaking of such, I think you're like Marlon James. So actually read, oh wow, Black Leopard, Red Wolf. It is all I can say is it's surreal, it's eclectic, it's I recommend it, but I think it's something perhaps one has to be in the right mood to absorb.
Yeah.
Kind of the way I hear about. I haven't read Wolf, but I hear it's like that as well. So
yeah, it's complex. So for from Britain, I already have two recommendations. I have Light. I think it was a sci-fi masterwork, and the Southern Reach trilogy. Hopefully, I will get to one at least this year. And yeah, stop giving me recommendations, Britain.
Britain's got some great recs,
Yeah.
right? But so yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Livia. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that the recommendations that always work with me, it's like I have had a couple of friends and author friends that come to me and tell me like, Livia, you have to read this. It has these themes. That's it. That's how I read. That's how to sell a book to me.
Well, so I'm hearing in terms of not necessarily influences, but where your reading originated. So Frank Herbert, Dune. So obviously extremely popular and
Yeah.
and iconic. Fiction, science fiction book. What were some of the books perhaps that led you down the fantasy path towards writing things that potentially? I mean, and I'm not trying to put a box around your work. A part of it felt for me as an outsider, and I don't like to again put boxes around the work of the author. It will felt very much like fairy tale almost and it wasn't whimsical, but certainly more like a dark fairy tale. And I what were some of the influences that led you towards like your fantasy is very character driven. In a way, it's somewhat coming of age. What made you? What were some of the authors that perhaps influenced you to write books such as Dance With Me?
Fantasy. It's funny because the first book that I read in fantasy probably weren't the ones that influenced me because yeah, mostly I read The Lord of the Ring and I read first a translation in Spanish. And spoiler alert, Tolkien doesn't sound like Tolkien in Spanish. It's very different. And I liked it, but perhaps not that much. I think it was more around games, video games set in fantasy settings that actually led me through the fantasy path. For example, I loved Dragon Age Origins, not the other ones, like Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2. I love The Witcher. I found The Witcher first through the games, and then I went through the books. Um, but yeah, I think those are the ones. That style is what I like the most. It's more around the idea that you have even more leeway than with sci-fi to create allegories and things. And I also liked at that moment, I had read American Gods, and I really like that, the fact how the real world blended with fantasy and myth, and how you could get, let me put it in this way, an incredible commentary based on myth, that it was a bit more hidden in there. And also, I think it didn't help because I read a lot of space opera, military sci-fi, and I will plug it in, read the Halo series, the books from the game because they're amazing. And I'm not quite comfortable writing that type of sci-fi, even though I really enjoy reading it. I think I like more, um, yeah, fantasy in general because of that. I'm also a pretty big fan of, um, in terms of non-fiction reading, I read a lot about war and peace and the causes of war, not as much as facts, but more around, for example, the Thucydides theory of why a war comes up because of fear, interest, and honor. And I find that fantasy let me explore that. So one of the first big fantasies that I wrote, which I have been pondering for like 16 years. One day I will publish it, not now. So that one is a big military thing, and mean, which I think it's also like what I like to write as well. It's more political in that sense that it explores all those things. I find that a fantasy setting allows me to do that with more nuance, or perhaps without being constrained by having to explain the science. I'm the type of science fiction reader that likes science hard, you know. And doing hard sci-fi, it takes a lot of time, you know.
Of course, research potentially.
Yes.
In terms of
Yes.
the technology and to make
And
it.
understanding everything. Yeah. So I wrote one. This one, Static Signal. It's about radio astronomy. I spent months researching radio
Yeah,
astronomy and
yeah.
how that would work and how I could put that into a near future setting. So even though I love reading it, it's pretty difficult to write. And it's funny because for the other series, I end up reading a lot of philosophy or psychology or books about history so that I can get the understanding that I need, you know?
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to reading that as well. Yeah, that's always one thing I must say that for me, I know there's part of me that's tempted to write sci-fi, but I certainly don't have the scientific or the technological background. I don't know if I can
Yeah.
write with the veracity in terms of, projecting forward future technology, which I think is really adds that lend of credibility to, a sci-fi book. But I love reading it. I love reading it, right?
Yeah.
I read a lot of great sci-fi, and yes, but I think that's why I probably wouldn't. So kudos to you. I probably wouldn't stray into the sci-fi.
Yeah, I think one that actually one of the first that I wrote for Unearthed Restorers, it's a hard sci-fi, but it's based on software, and my background is in software. So it was somewhat easy, and I was having like so much fun adding like stuff that I knew in there. But when you go to write something that you don't really know in terms of science, it can get hard, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So now I want to dovetail a bit back, of course, to Dance with Me. So we have talked a bit about it, but I'd like to hear from you as the author of what, in general, like your pitch, like what is Dance with Me about?
It's difficult. So I will say it's a blend of fairy tale with a dark coming of age, literary prose, and some strange resources there in a journey of self discovery where you will meet different characters, lovable characters that are broken but still alive and happy how they are, that will always have the right word to say.
I think that's a phenomenal pitch. I think that's an amazing pitch.
Thank
Wow.
you.
I mean, who wouldn't want to read that with that pitch? You would get an agent, no
Thank
problem,
you.
if you were going in that direction. So with Dance with Me, can you give us some details in terms of things such as, so you're planning a Kickstarter?
Yeah.
That's correct. So can you tell us a bit about the Kickstarter?
Yes, a lot about the Kickstarter. So it's already during the live. It's already open the pre-launch. So if you go to a pre-launch and you click notify me now, it will give you an alert when it launches. It launches on May 6th, 10 a.m. EST, which I think it's 3 p.m. UK. And there are a bunch of rewards. So you can get just a hardback, and the hardback is pretty nice. It has, let me show you because I did the internal design myself and I'm pretty proud of it.
Ooh,
You have a foreword by author Joshua Walker, and yeah, the chapters
beautiful.
are very pretty, and the covers of every individual chapter in the hardcover are different because
Wow.
they follow the story. So when the story gets darker, let me see if I can find one, the chapters also get
That's
darker.
not good.
And yeah, it was a nice idea that I had there. And let me see if I can find another. So the chapters as well, they have all these little characters that you will
Ooh,
find in the titles that are actually related to the title. So if you see it, you have to think about what's happened, perhaps revisit it after reading it. They have almost every chapter has an illustration. Let me put it up this way. And these were
beautiful.
made in graphite by hand. So I actually
Wow.
received the originals like a week ago, and it was amazing to just see
Yes.
them in person. And yeah, the cover design, the external one, I did it myself, and then the internal one, let me show you. It's actually the original
Wow.
graphite cover that we have in the game. So if you see the
Oh.
game, yeah, it's the
Oh.
original cover from the game. So it's a nod to the origins of the book. So that's one. The book is already basically done. You can also get the paperback, and the paperback actually has a different design. It doesn't have the foreword, and it has a whole design in marble. I also did myself, and it's a reference that everything in the room of a fairies of the elves here it's made in marble. You have the audiobook as well, which is narrated by Alison Phoenix. She's an Australian narrator. She's amazing. Literally, I have a reel that if you want to listen to it, she even sang for one of my characters,
Oh,
Margot,
wow.
the clockmaker, which has that. And I went to her and asked her, like, "Can you sing?" And she was like, "No problem." She did
Wow.
amazing, and the audiobook is already recorded. And you can also get, because at the end of the day, this is to celebrate the second anniversary of Unearthed Stories, you can also get access to Our Own Rhythm, which is another standalone in the same universe as Dance With Me. And in terms of rewards, the one with the hardback only, it's pretty inexpensive. We have it only at 28 Americans, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
28 USD. Yeah. And then you have the hardback with the audiobook, the audiobook, and Our Own Rhythm, the whole pack. And then I have some very special rewards. One of them, so one of the pledges, I will make a special polymer clay earrings with the thematic of Dance With Me, and that's because I do
Wow.
them for myself. So there are only 4
What?
slots for that. Yeah. There is
Wow.
also another tier actually has the chance of I will write a story based on your pet because I have
What?
this series, yeah, this series, The World of Delirium, which I have in the app. So there are only 4 slots for that, but for the ones pledging there, I will write a story based on their dog or cat, and it will be free to read through Unearthed Stories. It will be a short story because I have 4 to write, and in that one, the cats are spies. So it's a pretty
Wow.
funny. And yeah, those are the rewards. And in terms of the stretch goals, we have bookmarks at the start. You can, and they will basically go with every pledge. The bookmarks, any type of pledge with a reward will get the bookmarks. We have, and that's pretty easy to achieve. So hoping that we can get it quick. Then we have prints. So any purchase will come with 2 prints and after the Kickstarter, if it is successful, we will run a survey with all the with everyone to select which of the designs get printed. So there will be a chance in there. The next one, we are going to do every backer in the acknowledgements of the hardback, and then there is a chance to upgrade the paperback so that we get a design here in the inside. And my favorite, which I'm crossing my fingers we get it, and this is funny because we are not doing that stretch goal by an amount, it's just a number of backers. So if we have 100 backers across any tier, we will convert this to a deluxe edition with foil on all of these and gold foil here, AC-free paper, and it will have this page as well. How is it called? The end paper. We have an end paper as well. Yeah. So I'm really hoping that we can get to 100 backers. That will be amazing because it will be an even more gorgeous edition because it has a lot of details that will get converted into foil. And it will also have foil in the case, meaning that here, this will also be foil if we reach that goal. So yeah, I'm really hoping we can get it.
I'm sure you will. That is spectacular. I mean, how could you not want to back that, right?
Yeah.
Like that is just amazing. So many incredible features that you can mention that Kickstarter. So you heard it out there, folks. That Kickstarter, dance with me. Can you give us the start and end dates for the Kickstarter?
Yeah, it's starting on May 6th at 10 a.m. EST, 3 p.m. UK, and like Cinderella, midnight of the 7th for Australia. And it will go for around 30 days, so until early June. But given that it is a Kickstarter, the earlier you back it, the more it helps us, you know.
That is incredible. Well, I'm wishing you, I know it'll be successful, but regardless, I am wishing you all the best. The Kickstarter just sounds phenomenal. So I just want to clarify if it's okay. So Dance With Me is part, as you said, of essentially series. So this is the beginning. So are you able to divulge? You may not be able to. What the plans are for future installments in?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a universe, but every book is a standalone. So you will get a full story, complete to end, no cliffhanger on this one. And that's okay. So the next one that I have is the one that I mentioned before, Our Own Rhythm, which is also coming on the Kickstarter. That follows. So the idea of the universe is I'm keeping the idea of dolls enchanted by magic that are kept by elves, fays, or whatever, and they have to do something. So Our Own Rhythm follows that premise, and it's a different doll. It's a wooden doll animated by a fae, and she actually dances something like tap dance that is actually based on Malambo from my home country. And it's a different story. So it's a different story, a different allegory, but I want to keep the idea that there is always something around a personal theme going on. In that case, I'm discussing bullying and what I mentioned before, the concept that sometimes something you love becomes so attached to negative things that you can't really keep doing it. So that's the next one, depending on, and that's already available. You can get it on the Kickstarter as well. There is no link between them. You can read them on any order as well. So depending how it goes, I may novelize it in another year again. And I wanted to actually write one of the backstories for one of these characters, which you probably know who it is, So, the philosopher that you have here. And I wanted to see if I would write that, but for now, I'm still thinking it. The problem with this series in particular is that the allegory is pretty important. So I need to make sure that I have the allegory and understood and exactly where I want to go, to before writing. And I also have another idea for this one. I have the title and the allegory, but I'm not saying it and I'm keeping it for myself. So I may have, so in summary, I may novelize Our Own Rhythm in the future and maybe 2 more books, but keeping the thematic of this story, they will always come as interactive versions first and then probably as a novelization.
Wow. Now this is exciting. So, for those of you who've already had the privilege of an arc, such as myself, who's read As for Me, and I know it's one of the very highly anticipated indie books coming out in our space. A lot of people are looking forward to
Thank
it.
you.
So now you have even more incentive, people, because Livia has let us know that there are going to be future installments planned in that universe. So that is really
Thank
exciting.
you.
I absolutely I cannot wait. So I know it's going to be highly successful. As I said, the book is absolutely beautiful in every way.
Thank you.
I foresee that it will definitely figure in my top indie books of 2025. And
Thank you.
I just think that you're a brilliant writer, and the sky is the limit for you, Livia. Now, I do want to touch upon, if it's okay. So,
Yeah.
lest we forget that you're also a phenomenal blogger and podcaster.
Oh, yeah.
So, can you tell us a bit about what you do in that space? Can you
Yeah.
elaborate on that?
So let me tell you how it started. It started with me basically just drowning my partner in analysis of books until one day he told me like, you should just do a podcast. And that's how it started. So Books Undone, it basically has three different types of episodes. It's always around literary analysis or thematic analysis, which is what I love the most. So the solo episodes are mostly like an essay in which I will just pick a theme and go down with it. For example, I got a recommendation from one of my fellow author friends, Carl Forshaw, to read Walking on Glass by Ian Banks. And so the episode for that, it discusses how the three stories are not only related by plot, but also related by theme, by meaning, and through allegory as well. And then it dives into an analysis of how the book is actually presenting the idea that you can't make someone the purpose of your life. The purpose of your life has to be always within you. And so it touches a bit on existentialism as a philosophy because I love philosophy and I won't chat about it. And there are a lot of episodes like that. One of my favorites is when I read The Night's Radiance by Brandon Sanderson as Stoic philosophers. And so I analyze the Immortal Wars, Journey Before Destination, and all of them as how they relate to the concepts of Stoic philosophy, for example, amor fati and to love one's journey. So that's the type of solo episodes you may find. They are all scripted. You can read the transcripts either on my website, and because I'm a bit of a fan, I also research a lot and I will link all the papers that I researched for it on my website. Sometimes you will have like 10 footnotes of papers in there. That's the type of episode. For the group episodes, expect something like that, but more of a conversation with people. So we have a lot of, for example, Borges, I did Cortázar, and I also did some on meta topics such as the depiction of trauma in fantasy and how you can do that as a writer and how you perceive it as a reader. And they are generally geared always towards analyzing the themes or the meaning. I think one of those that I would recommend is either the discussion on Rejoice by Stephen Erickson, which is a sci-fi, or Trono Quaror Tertius by Borges. It's pretty funny, the last one as well. And it touches on the concept of reality versus unreality and how we can create a fiction within our minds and live the fiction even though we are living in reality. So it has a lot of those things. And for the author spotlights, I'm very slow. Whenever I get somebody asking me to read the books, it generally takes me 6 months to get to it because I read the book before doing the podcast. And the idea is that I do a thematic deep dive with the author into whatever happened in the book. So, for example, with B.S.H. Garcia, we analyzed both of her novellas and we discussed a lot about childhood trauma and the impact of events that happened at that early age in your characters and how that happens in the novella. But it's always on the frame by the novella. Both of her novellas were actually on the Sphinx. I think one is semi-finalist, the other finalist. And yeah, I do most of those thematic analyses and I have two coming at the time of recording this. I have two author spotlights coming in as well. And I know that I have seen a few things on Britain's channels and done some responses myself, so you will also find those type of episodes in there. But yeah, it's always long form. I think that my shortest videos are around half an hour. I have some that are about 2 hours. It's audio only, so that you can just listen and that's it. And yeah, generally I do 1 or 2 episodes per month, and that's because reading takes a lot of time, researching takes a lot of time, and editing the audio takes a lot of time. So that's why.
Listen to some of them; they are fantastic. What
Thank you.
I love intellectual discourse on BookTube, Spotify, on books and literature. That's I think it's an underrated aspect of this space that and we need all types of discourse on books.
Yeah,
Period. Right? We need simple 2 minute analysis reviews. We need long form interviews like we're doing here. I think we need a hodgepodge, a collection of everything. But I
yeah.
do really enjoy your podcast
Thank you.
specifically, and I love the level of analysis and discourse again on those topics. And I haven't listened. I have a lot more of the backlist to listen to, but I think you know I don't think it's niche. I think it really adds to the overall value of what's done in terms of books now, because of course there's all kinds of there's all kinds of data that says that reading's becoming a lost art, and
Yeah,
and I won't belabor all that, but at the same time, just empirically, I feel like the more we talk about books in general, the better we are,
yeah.
as a human race. So I love knowing that people such as yourself just do such an excellent job of discussing those topics. So thank you for what you
Oh,
do
thank you.
in this
Yeah,
space.
I know it's a bit niche. I don't have many listeners. Like I publish everywhere where podcast starts and also on YouTube. And I know it's small, but I have so much joy doing it. I really enjoy reading books like that. And yeah, that's also the type of discussions I generally do. But I think that at least books with themes or those books that make me think so hard, those are the ones that I enjoy the most. But that also comes because of how I am as a reader. That affects how I am as a writer and what I enjoy podcasting about.
And specifically long form content, I love it. Clearly, I'm here doing it with you. So,
Yeah,
and all the people that I've interviewed on Six Elementals and with my partner, my wonderful colleague Taylor from Maybe Between the Pages and Page Chewing, and I feel that long live long form content.
yeah.
So I know I'm going to continue to do it. So I really hope that you do as well, because you do it very well. So again,
Well,
thank
thank you.
you for all you do in this space. So you balance writing, blogging, podcasting, all these things, and reading as well. And I think for many of us as authors, first we were readers before we started, creating our own
Yeah.
worlds. What are some of the books that you've read recently that you love, you want to shout out about? They can be indie, traditional books, doesn't matter. What are some of the books that have got you buzzing, they've had time to read in the last few years, that you want to give a shout out to? Um,
Indie or traditional or anything.
anything,
Anything.
either
So
or both, anything.
So one of them is the one that I have there, V for Vendetta. I loved
Yeah,
it. I did a
yeah.
discussion with Britton, actually. He came to my podcast. It's an amazing graphic novel, and I need to read more about Alan Moore. And I also have them there. Anything by
Uh,
T.R. Napper, honestly.
yeah.
It's cyberpunk, modern. It's incredibly scary in the sense that he knows how to make the future plausible. And it is so plausible that it's terrifying. He is also an incredible writer. You will love the prose, PL.
Okay.
He does a lot of literary things, but it's also fast-paced, character-driven, and I have, I think, 3 episodes. One on Ghost of the Neon God, which is a novella. Let me see. It's teeny
Oh, it's
tiny. There is no
small.
reason
Small.
as to not reading it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. A caveat is that most of the characters are Australian, and if you don't like Australian jargon, sometimes it can be like cheers, mate, all the time. But yeah, but it's incredible. And the Escherman, I really loved it. It's a discussion on memory focused on Ebbinghouse's forgetting cure. He's not that technical in the book, but it's amazingly thematic and fast-paced and character-driven at the same time. So I really love that one. The last one that I read is a classic that has been banned everywhere, A Snail on the Slope by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. I'm it's funny because I started reading it and saying like, "What's this nonsense?" I ended up finishing the book and saying, "This is genius." I will make probably a podcast on it once I can get moving into that. And yeah, let me see. Something I read Discovery by J. Minton. I have them coming to my podcast. I was editing that as well. It's an incredible book. I really liked the the themes are in there. The prose is great, and they did a bunch of literary tricks that I really enjoyed reading it as well. Um, for authors that I would really recommend Thomas J. Devens. He writes grimdark.
Heard of him.
I haven't seen somebody who blends prose and poetry in a grimdark book in the way he does it.
Wow.
Like it's amazing. He writes in a very specific way, which is very unique, but it can get grimdark without being explicit. So I would really recommend it. Besides the Verming of the Old Empire series from him, it's all novellas. So low commitment. Go get it, read it, because I think each one is 120 pages, so easy to read. And Carl Forshaw, uh, he always recommends me the best books, which is a problem because my TBR is going that because of that. But Renya, it's also an amazing book. I also had him coming to my podcast. It's a bit thematic. It's not the type of book that will promise something and will reach that in the end. So it's a type of book that you just have to let it take you somewhere. And it's very well done. I would say it's very well done. It's pretty unique. It has themes from games, so it also has that flavor in there that you may enjoy if you enjoy fantasy games as well. And I know he mentioned all the inspirations, but I can't recall them, honestly. And the one that I mentioned before, B.H. Garcia, I read both of her novellas. They are amazing. I think From the Depths has one of the best endings that I have read. It's a very difficult book to read. It's very emotional. It follows two siblings. It has a lot of childhood trauma in it, but the literary trick she did on the ending, it's hands down amazing. And I won't shut up about it because I think it's very well done as well. So those are the books that I have read as of late, year and a half. Yeah, I also read Walking on Glass by Ian Banks, but I'm careful about recommending that one because it may not be everyone's cup of tea. It's 3 plot lines, and they are not precisely related by plot. It's a type of book that you have to read it and then have a good think about what the author really meant. And that may not be, it's not a straightforward story. So not everybody may pick it up.
Well, those are some fabulous recommendations. My TBR is being added to. Thank you for those. We appreciate it. I'm sure the audience appreciate it too. Quick from Brittany mentions that Discovery, of course, by J.J. Minton, another like Dance With Me, one of the talked about pending releases or recent releases in the indie sphere. This is the most polished self-published book read since Eden. From the beloved Dr. Philip Chase, his Eden trilogy is one of currently sitting in my top indie self-published fantasy series of all time. It's currently sitting in the top spot because Eden, I absolutely loved the Eden trilogy. But Discovery has that kind of potential as well. For me, of course, it's only one book in, but Discovery was fabulous, and Dance with Me as
Yeah.
well
Thank you.
is absolutely phenomenal. So we'll see how that all plays out when the series are finished. But yes, and thanks for those recs and promoting not only Philip Chase
And
but the Mintons.
I actually in my podcast we spoke a lot about how they developed Discovery. So if you want to know about the inside of how they did it, stay tuned because the episode is coming end of May. And yeah, there is also a lot of roasting because I roasted each other when we were talking. But yeah, it's very funny. It's a very nice book.
The Mintons are just such lovable people. You just can't help but want to support them because they're so amazing. They're such a wonderful family unit. It's just very inspiring to see them, and the book is really good.
Yeah.
So that just adds to it. And I would say the same for you, Livia, that it's so easy for people to want to support you because people love you, they think you're
Thank you.
awesome. So that's something as well that I think in our community, you're definitely one of the bright lights for what you do for others as well as your own writing. And so thank you for doing that,
Thank
everything
you.
that you do. We're very, very excited to see where you take things now that you've decided to novelize a lot of your work from your inactive fiction site. So, and I think people are going to be very pleased with the result. I still have to read Genesis Change, so my TBR is long too, but that is definitely something I'm going to read. And anything
Thank
that
you.
you write, going to read anything you write. You had me hooked with Dance with Me, and again, once you get me with the prose as an author, that's it, right?
So the next one that I'm writing is a continuation of this one. So book one of Records of the Orders, that's the one that is coming soon, end of year. I would
end
probably
of
do
year.
yeah, end of this year. So I'm aiming for September, October to have that out. And I will say it's for all the hopefulness of Dance with Me, this can get grim, but in the sense of it's grim once you realize what's happening because the characters operate at a different moral level. And because they have different morals, I don't see what they are doing as wrong. Right? So it's like you have to take the side of the humans, which are not the POV in that book in particular, to see what's happening. And book one, it's a bit more epic fantasy. Yeah, it's a blend. You have more different countries, you have people in power, you have a whole plot, and the alchemists are more embedded in there. It's what's happening. So yeah, that one is coming. I'm aiming for September, October. Let's see if I actually manage to get it there. I will be the first book of the series, so you can read Mean, the interactive, you can read Genesis, or you can start with that one. It will work.
Fantastic. Well, I know I certainly am. I'm sure a lot of people are excited that we're going to get a lot more from you in terms of what you write. As we're winding down, first of all, I'd like to give you an opportunity is there anything else specific about Dance with Me that you would like the audience to know, anyone who is going to be watching on the replay, specifically about Dance with Me that you want to inform us on?
Yeah, two things. So the first scene of the first chapter is actually free to read on my Substack. I put up the links on Twitter and everything. So that's just around 2,000 words that you can go on there and read. Those come straight from the novelization. And second, if you want to give the story a try before you decide whether to go on to the Kickstarter, Dance with Me, the interactive version, is actually free to read through Unearthed Stories. That means install the app, read the whole story for free.
Wow.
And that's the original. So depending on your path, it may vary from the book because for the book I had to pick some paths. But yeah, you can read there and it should be more or less depending what you choose, the full book. So that's a great entry if either of those are great entries if you want to, have a taste of what the writing is before committing to the book. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. What a generous offer that is. So you heard it, listeners, that you can essentially read it on the app. And I just think
the app
that
is also free to install. So the app is also free. So
Fabulous.
no barriers in there. Yeah.
Okay. But I know, like me, because I am definitely a physical book person. No matter what, whether or not I'd received the arc from you, and again, you were suggested to do it, I would have had that on my shelf. That needs to have a place of
Thank you.
prominence on my shelves. Dance with me. So, but you've been so generous with your time. I want to also give you an opportunity as we're winding down to let everybody know where to buy Dance with Me. Just confirming details about where to go for the Kickstarter, where to find you on social media, where to buy any of your other books, such as Just Change, etc. So if you can let the audience please know about
Yeah.
that.
So the Kickstarter, just go to Kickstarter, search for Dance with Me, and it should be there. And the full URL, I think you put it up in the
Yes.
description. It's kickstarter.com/project/Livia J. Elliot/dance with me with hyphens. And then I'm almost everywhere and I can't keep up. So Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram as Livia J. Elliot. My website is liviajelliot.com and my podcast is Books Undone and you can find it everywhere, basically. Apple Podcast, Spotify. It's also on Audible, YouTube as well. You can find it in YouTube. In YouTube, I also have in my channel links to other interviews or even other book discussions that I have had about different books, like when I was doing the Sci-Fi Masterworks discussions as well. So yeah, it's everything there. I also have Substack at liviajelliot.substack.com, and you can find my books. For now, Dance with Me is exclusive to a Kickstarter, so I will really recommend that if you want the book, just go get it through the Kickstarter. And Genesis, it's everywhere. It's also an audiobook, so you can get the audiobook everywhere. It's not only on Audible, you can get it on Spotify, even in libraries. But Genesis, the ebook is free for my newsletter subscribers. So either subscribe to my newsletter on liviajelliot.com or subscribe to my Substack as well. You can get the ebook for free either way and give it a chance. It's also a novella because apparently I can only write tiny books. So yeah, pretty small, low commitment, a lot to think about with both of them. And the app, the last one, Unearthed Stories. You can install it on Android through Google Play. Just look for Unearthed Stories. It's free. And you can also install it on iPhone or iPad through the App Store. So again, Google for Unearthed Stories. There are no entry barriers. You can just install it and start reading. And yeah, that's all.
Fantastic. Well, I know listeners, watchers, follow Olivia.
Thank
Check out
you.
everything she does in this space. The podcasts are outstanding, the ones I've listened to. The writing, again, chef's kiss for Dance with Me. Definitely going to figure it in my top indie books this year. It is absolutely
Thank you.
phenomenal. I've had the privilege of, again, having an arc. Thank you so much, Livia, for that. And thank you so much for coming on Six Elementals interviews. It's such an honor and a privilege to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And I can't wait to see what else you continue to do, especially with your writing. For me, quickly, PL Stewart, The Dragon King Saga is my channel, YouTube. The books, plstewart.com. 5 books out, A Pack of Wolves, the 5th one recently published. Currently working on the 6th one, A Black Dragon on Red, which is coming in the spring of 2026. And 2027, God willing, the series will be completed. Author journey will be completed. We'll move on to something else. Currently also, again, more shameless self-promotion, my short story Forest Dark in Chapers World anthology, brilliant anthology with some fabulous writers. I recommend you read it for the other stories. Mine is jammed in there. It's also set in the Dark Drown Kingdom universe, but a bit of fantasy horror. So I think if you like that sort of stuff, you might enjoy it. And of course, recently, I don't have the copies yet myself. I should have them shortly. For the Broken Binding, the wonderful Broken Binding, the special editions of A Drowned Kingdom and The Last Atlanteans are now out. You can get them on general sale if you visit the Broken Binding. Finally, when it comes to social media, Peel Stewart Writes is basically a handle for everything. Blue Sky, like as Livy said, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And for page chewing, under their wonderful page chewing umbrella, Taylor from Maybe Two Pages Myself, which Livia also is a part of. Check out the page chewing website under the auspices of the awesome Steve as the the executive of all things Patreon, and Taylor and I do the interview series as well on YouTube. So once again, thank you so much to my incredible guest, Livia Elliot, for
Thank
joining
you.
me. And again, watch out for Dance With Me, back the Kickstarter, read the book, check out Gender's Change, check out Livia's podcast. She's an incredible person in the community and
Thank you.
someone well worth your time. So, and again, I'm very humbled that you joined me tonight. So, everyone who participated in the comments, for example, Britton from Some Okie Dude, Chipipo, anybody who watches this on the replay, you are what makes this type of long form content special. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming out to support and watch Livia. So once again, we will see you next time. Take care.